Okay, so people who are just joining us, we have been speaking with Nishant about his experiences of applying and getting accepted to INSEAD Business School. Nishant is currently based out of Malaysia. And on this video, what we are going to speak about is that we are going to speak about his interviewing experiences with two alums at INSEAD. Okay, so Nishant, first and foremost, so if you can just quickly walk us through your impressions about the interview. Was it like conversational, or was it like a stress interview? What was it like?
Both my interviews were very conversational in nature. It was very casual, and the alums were quite candid, and they were very open in sharing their experiences and perspectives, and also sharing advice with me. So I would say it was very conversational, and it did not seem very formal, or there was no stress at all.
Okay, and so if you can just speak about the basics, right? How long did your interview last? And what was the focus of both these interviews?
Sure. So both my interviews lasted about 45 minutes. So I'll go through the interviews one by one. So my first interviewer, you started off with the general questions about my profile and background, and then the regulars: why MBA, why INSEAD, and what other B schools you applied to, and your choices. Then he went a bit more specific into some areas of my details, some projects. He wanted me to share about some projects that I had worked on and what I had learned. He specifically asked for an example where I had worked with people across a language barrier. So in my CV, he noticed that I'd done a project in Korea where language is a problem. So he specifically asked that how did you navigate that, and what were the issues, and what were the learnings and all. So that was one thing. The other thing he wanted me to discuss about is what are my weaknesses that I'm currently working upon, and he shared his views on the same as well and advised me what things that I can do to tackle that weakness. So that's, I would say, was the gist of what we did in the first interview. And then he shared a lot about his experience from INSEAD, from his time. He was quite a long guy. I think he was a 2007 graduate. So he shared about how he found INSEAD, what he learned, and how the INSEAD experience has benefited him in the last decade or so. So that was a gist of what my first interview was about. My second interview was also with a lady who was also an alum from, I think, 2006 batch. Again, the first set of questions were pretty much similar about my background and why MBA, why INSEAD. So those were like the standard questions. And then she focused a lot on on how I work in teams, especially during through conflicts. So she said that in INSEAD you will be put in groups with people with conflicting views, and she put some situations in front of me that how do you deal with conflicts when you are someone who is party to the conflict, when two other group members are in conflict, how do you work with them and solve the conflict and come to a decision. So that's something we discussed in detail for more than 10 minutes, I would say, of the interview. And then it was about what do I do outside work, and a bit more probing into that to understand the details. And she also asked a bit about some of my projects and what I learned and the overall experience.
So one thing that you were struggling on when we were working together was your extracurricular participation,
right?
So was that in any way covered, or what the kind of experiences that were asked were mostly cultural and professional in nature?
Extracurriculars too. So the second interview did cover that, what I do outside work. So that was covered. But yeah, I mean, not in great detail, but just touched upon towards the end of the interview.
Okay, all right. So in terms of people who are struggling in terms of their extracurriculars, what would be your advice, right? I mean, in terms of balancing out and writing their applications, of managing this during their interview?
I would say that it's better to just focus on the learning aspect of the experience, what you gain out of it, and try to highlight that and how that has impacted you as an individual or as a person, and trying to put that out. So, for example, when I spoke about sports, I mentioned how that helped me to become a better team player and in sports you win and lose, so that helps you learn how to go through ups and downs in life and so on. So, try to kind of highlight that aspect rather than just the activity part of it.
Okay. Now, in terms of any major differences between your interview 1 and interview 2?
Not really, or not too much of a difference, I would say. Yes, I mean, some of the questions are different, but broadly in terms of the approach and how they went through it, there was not much difference. It was quite consistent.
Alright, so I'll quickly summarize what we have spoken so far about your interview. So one is that INSEAD conducts like 2 interviews, which are both conducted by alums. In your case, both were senior alums, like approximately 10 to 12 years of experience. Second is that they tested you on 4 questions, which are like why MBA, why now, what are your career goals, etc. They also spoke about cultural aspect of things. So, for example, how has it been like living in Malaysia, and how do you deal with conflicts, etc.
Right.
Basically, your interview was very conversational in nature.
Right.
Okay, cool. So now, in terms of behavioral questions, which are like leadership experiences that you have, or like weaknesses or strengths do you have? So, to what extent were these questions asked, and to what extent were there cross questioning on this?
So yes, so in this part there was some cross questioning. So when the situation was given to me and I told that this is the way I would react, then there was a cross question that why this way, why not say, why do ABC and not XYZ, and why do you think this is better? And then the situation was tweaked a bit and said, will you still do the same thing, or will your response change? So there was some sort of cross questioning on that part and some bit of probing.
And towards the end, they ask you that, hey, do you have any questions for us? So what kind of questions did you end up asking them?
So I decided to talk a bit, ask them about their personal experiences and how they learned, what they learned during their MBA, and since they had been alone for more than 10 years, that looking back, what are the things that they feel they did right and they would advise me to do as well as a potential student. So it was more on the personal front, and that's something I think they also were very detailed in terms of sharing their perspective and experiences and all.
Okay, now in terms of preparation for the interview, what sort of tips would you like to share, or what are the points that a candidate should keep in mind while interviewing with these alums? Should he or she be more formal, or sort of be more candid? What are the major tips you can share here?
I think, obviously my experience was both the interviews are very conversational and candid. So in terms of preparation, I would say the standard questions should be prepared at once. The things like why NCR and why MBA and what other schools, those are I think standard, which are pretty much asked by most interviewers, if not all. And for the behavioral questions, I would say that keep a set of like 5 or 6 situations or scenarios that you have encountered throughout your career, and then based on the questions which you can fit in. So, and then again, when you are speaking of some situations, focus more on the learning part rather than just explaining the situation. So that's what I would advise.
Okay.
And that's what I did in preparations. Yeah.
Okay, so what are you looking forward to doing at INSEAD? What are the things that excite you about the school? If you can just share those tips, it will be very useful for people who are applying to INSEAD next year.
Sure. So in terms of, I'm obviously excited to join the school. I'm definitely looking forward to doing studying across both the campuses, which is something quite unique to INSEAD, and possibly even the third campus at Middle East. I'm not sure if I'll go for that, but that's something I'm definitely looking forward to. The other thing is, of course, the fact that I'll be in such a diverse environment, which I have personally not experienced, though I'm working abroad, but it's still not a place where you interact with 20-30 nationalities at a regular basis. So being in that sort of an environment is something I'm definitely looking forward to.
Absolutely. You can in fact even sort of do an exchange program at Water at Kellogg as well.
Right.
Those are there, and in the Middle East, one of the top negotiations professor actually exclusively teaching Middle East campus. So there is a selection program for that. At least for our cohort, that was the case.
Okay.
So his name is Faraj.
I did a master class by him during a campus visit in Singapore.
Wonderful. So he conducts a sort of a program there, which you can.
Sorry?
He conducts a specialized program there, so it's a 1 week sort of a program which you can do in the Middle East campus. So it will not be a full exchange; it will just be a partial exchange in a way. So it's good from that angle. So cool, wonderful. Okay. So last question: how was the experience working with me? Specifically, anything that you would like to share on that front?
I think it was a pretty good experience. I think the inputs were quite helpful in terms of shaping up the essays and refining them and coming up with a comprehensive overall application. So from that point of view, I think it was quite good, and I definitely recommend anyone thinking of working with you to go ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right, Nishant, thank you so much for sharing those experiences. More than happy
Yeah.
to sort of speak about any issues that you face at business school or beyond.